Maria and Ivy gave it their all. In the end, after almost 30 exchanges, Marlon still found a chink in their armor and dealt a blow to each of them. The two women staggered back from the impact, and blood came out of their mouths. Instantly, they couldn't even muster any internal energy. Not bad. Marlon grinned. He looked like he was still riding the high. You're shameless. The two humiliated women flew into a rage. They wanted to attack again, but Silas raised a hand to stop them. That's enough. You two are no match for him. Allow me. Silas, this asshole is utterly shameless. You need to teach him a lesson, the two women said indignantly. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Silas leveled a cold gaze at Marlon. He slowly unsheathed the sword on his back. Maria and Ivy bit back their anger and stood off to one side. Punk, you want to play the hero and save those damsels in distress? Are you capable of doing that? Don't regret it when I smash all your teeth in, Marlon sneered. I'll defeat you in less than 10 moves, Silas said arrogantly. 10 moves? Heh, is your head okay? If you were one of the heavenly immortals, I might have some reservations. Where did a nameless pipsqueak like you find the courage to say such outrageous things to my face? Marlon laughed coldly. You don't believe me? Then try me. Silas beckoned with his finger. Fine. I want to see what you can do. Marlon was getting a little angry. He brandished his blade and slashed it down on Silas' head. Silas' expression remained calm. He raised his sword in response. In an instant, the room was filled with the glinting of swords. Bursts of energy filled the room. Everyone else took a step back, putting space between them and the fight. They were afraid that they might get hurt. Miss, that bearded guy is really strong. Can your fellow disciple handle it? Abigail asked out of the blue. From the earlier battles, one could tell that Marlon hadn't used his full strength. Mph, Silas is the senior disciple of the Invincible Guardians. He's extremely talented and strong. It will be a piece of cake for him to take down that scum, Ivy said with confidence. That's right. Just watch closely. Watch how Silas scares off the enemy, Maria said arrogantly. I hope so, Abigail muttered to herself. While they were talking, the spar had progressed rapidly. After a few blows, Silas thrust his sword violently, hitting Marlon's blade. There was a clang, and the sword broke. Following the momentum, the sword pierced Marlon's shoulder. The broken end of the sword fell to the floor. Marlon's expression changed. He staggered backward from the impact, wobbling on his feet. Marlon. The lackeys were shell-shocked. They immediately helped Marlon up. They'd never thought that the unbeatable Marlon would actually be defeated today. Even less so at the hand of a young swordsman. Who are you? How is your swordsmanship so sharp? Marlon said with a dark look. I am the senior disciple of the Invincible Guardians, Silas. Silas swung his sword, shaking off the blood. He was in his element. The Invincible Guardians? Marlon was shocked. The Invincible Guardians were a well-known guild in Glenstead. Although they were few in number, they were all elite fighters. Among all the guilds in Glenstead, the Invincible Guardians were in the top 10. An ordinary martial artist like him couldn't afford to piss them off. When he returned to his senses, Marlon lowered his head in apology. Silas, I didn't know who you were. Please forgive me for offending you. Kneel and apologize, Silas said with an arrogant expression. Huh? Marlon frowned. He hesitated, but he still fell to his knees with a thud. He clearly showed what it meant to know when to surrender. Marlon. When Marlon knelt on the ground, his lackeys all seemed aggrieved. Although Silas was very strong, if they all fought him together, they would have a shot at winning. They couldn't understand why their leader would kneel in front of everyone. If this incident got out, their reputation would be done for. Don't let me see you all again. Get lost. Silas snorted coldly. Let's go. Marlon said nothing more and immediately fled with his lackeys. He didn't dare stay a second longer. Amazing. What an amazing fight. As expected of the senior disciple of the Invincible Guardians. His truly impressive. In less than 10 moves, he defeated Marlon the hoodlum. It's truly admirable. All the martial artists in the hall began to clap and cheer. Marlon had a notorious reputation. After seeing him pick on women today, they were furious at him. It was just that none of them dared to fight him due to his strength. Now that Silas had taken down Marlon the hoodlum, they rejoiced and praised him. Did you see that? That's how strong Silas is. Now do you still dare question him? Ivy raised her head pridefully. She had felt a little unhappy because of Abigail's doubt earlier. Miss Natasha, when you were in danger, Dustin didn't so much as say a word. Yet, Silas stood up for you and defeated your harasser. I think it's clear who is better. Maria turned around to look at Natasha. She sounded a little proud. TMPH, what's so impressive about that? Dustin is not any weaker than your senior disciple, Ruth said indignantly. She had witnessed Dustin defeat Terry with her own eyes during the fight with the Doyle family. Silas' skills were far from average, but there was still a gap between him and Terry. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to beat Dustin, either. If he's really that strong, then he wouldn't have shrunken back into his shell earlier. Maria snickered coldly. Exactly. In the face of danger, he'd actually let a woman stand in front of him. He's a worthless excuse for a man. Ivy sneered. Ruth was suddenly at a loss for words. She turned around and said huffily, Dustin, say something. What's there to say? It's meaningless to fight over this. Dustin shrugged. If you don't have the chops, then just say so. There's no need to sound so high and mighty. What a joke. Silas leaned over, not forgetting to make a snide remark. Sure, Dustin said indifferently. He didn't bother to give a real response. It seems like you now know the gap between us. It's like heaven and earth, Silas said pridefully. Sure. Ms. Natasha is well respected and noble. Someone like you shouldn't try to ride on her coattails. If you know better, you should stay away from her. Sure. Only a god among men like me is worthy of Ms. Natasha. Sure. Hey, can you respond with something else? Silas was starting to get irritated. Fuck, after all that, all he could say was sure. No one could stand that. Sure, Dustin said. He opened his mouth wide and increased his volume. You fucking dash. Silas flew into a rage. Just as he was about to blow up, the door was kicked open with a bang. Immediately after, a group of mysterious masked men walked in, led by a tall man in a cloak. As soon as he entered, he removed his mask to reveal a sinister face. He was completely bald, no hair, eyebrows, or facial hair. His complexion was deathly pale, his lips were purplish, and his cheeks were sunken. Even more strangely, his eyes were blood red. He looked as scary as a ghost. I didn't expect the Harmon family to invite a ragtag bunch of trash. How disappointing. The pale man swept his gaze over his surroundings. He laughed coldly. Who the fuck are you? How dare you act so atrociously here? A burly man in the crowd shouted angrily. The pale man tilted his head and turned to the burly man. He reached out to grab the air in front of him.